everybody. We're just waiting for the participants to fully join. So if we just give it a few minutes and then we'll start the event. Just waiting for a few more to join. We'll just give it a couple more minutes. Okay, we're just waiting for a few more to join. Just give everyone a chance to check in. Okay. Right, we'll make a start. So welcome everybody. So this is the IET Merseyside and Western Cheshire Young Professionals Committee Women in Engineering event. So this is our first webinar doing an event like this. So as you can imagine, normally throughout the year we host normal continued professional development events in person. So this is a new challenge for us all, but it's looking really positive as we've got lots of attendees. So yeah, welcome. So tonight we'll have a couple of presenters talking about their careers, their successes throughout their careers and what they do to hopefully inspire you all in the roles that you are in engineering, or whether you're thinking of pursuing a career in engineering. So we are the Young Professionals Committee. So just to tell you a bit about us, we host events throughout the year. There's a committee of us, and within the committee, there's university students, apprentices, graduates, and we all come together throughout the year and organise events. And this is our second year doing a Women in Engineering event. Last year it was held in person, and this year it's over Zoom. So I hope you all enjoy the event and the wonderful presenters that we have this evening. Just to let you all know, on the bottom of your screens, you should have a Q&A section. So as the presenters are speaking, you are able to type any questions that you have throughout their presentations. And at the end of their presentation, we will be able to answer those questions for you. So if anyone's got any questions throughout, just please type on there and we'll get those answered. So I think that's everything. So I'm going to hand over to our first presenter, who is Rebecca Harding. Rebecca is a graduate control software engineer at the Central Laser Facility Science and Technology Facilities Council. So Rebecca, do you want to share your screen now?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. So hopefully you can see my screen. Cool. So yeah, I'm just going to give a little bit of a brief overview about my career so far and just a bit of information about what I do. So my name is Becky, as mentioned, and I work at the STFC. And I'm going to start my story right at the beginning and talk about school. So when I was at school, I was expecting that to go forwards then. How about if I click? There we go. When I was at school, I really liked all the STEM subjects, but I wasn't sure what I wanted to do at university. So originally I thought I would do some sort of science subject, but I really couldn't decide. And then I became interested in doing some programming in my own time. So there were no sort of computer science courses or other engineering courses really offered at my sixth form, but I became interested sort of outside of school. And then eventually one day I was literally just scrolling down all the courses that exist in a big list on UCAS, and I saw that you can actually study robotics, and I thought, wow, really? That's a degree, robotics? That sounds awesome. So I looked into it a bit and saw that it was a nice combination of some different sort of branches of engineering, like some electronics, tiny bit of mechanical, and a lot of programming, which I knew I was interested in. So I decided to apply, and then went off to uni and started doing robotics. So here's a couple of pictures of me and my work from the first couple of years. So I got to produce PCBs and do some soldering and design circuits and do programming. And so it was exactly what I wanted to do. It was definitely challenging, but it was really, really fun. So I had a great time. So then during my second year of university, I was encouraged to find a placement year. I applied to the Science and Technology Facilities Council. I applied to a couple of roles at their site near Didcot in Oxfordshire, and one role at Desbury Laboratory near Warrington. And I got offered the one at Desbury, but I initially wasn't sure whether to take it because my family is all from Somerset, and I didn't really like the idea of being that far away from home. But the job looked really, really cool. And so I spoke to my careers advisor, and in the end, she basically said, if the only reason you don't want to go is because it's far from home, basically you should just go and give it a try. So I took her advice, and so off I went. So here's some pictures from my year at Desbury. I worked in the Control Systems and Safety Interlock group, which was part of the technology department at Desbury Laboratory. And I worked on, control systems. And I got to write lots of drivers for devices, some of which I got to actually see installed on the particle accelerator Clara. And at the bottom here is a picture of a device I worked on. And I got to write user interfaces for them as well. So you can see one here. And I thought it was a really well suited role, really, in terms of it was programming just like I wanted to do, as well as still working with hardware. So it sort of fits in quite well with what I was learning in robotics. And just in general, I really enjoyed the year at STFC. The picture on the right there is an outreach event. We got to do a lot of like public engagement stuff. So that was a picture of me volunteering as a robot design judge for the first Lego League, which was a lot of fun. And generally, I got to do sort of a lot of I suppose extracurricular stuff. So like I was part of the Women in STEM committee at the organisation, and just generally really enjoyed it. So then anyway, I returned to university, and when I first joined the degree, I was due to be on a 3-year course, but I actually decided to then transfer onto the integrated master's course because, well, I was really enjoying it basically, and decided that I'd like to do the master's as well. And in my final year, I was lucky enough to submit a paper to a conference that got accepted. And so there's a picture of me here with my friend and colleague that I wrote the paper with, presenting about my work, which was really scary but really cool because most of the speakers were at least at PhD level, and we were the only master's students there giving a presentation. So it was very, very nerve-wracking, but absolutely sort of fantastic experience, and I'm really glad that I got to do that. So anyway, then I reached the end of university, and I already knew exactly where I wanted to go. I'd really enjoyed my year at STFC, and so I knew I wanted to go back. But this time around, I managed to find a position at the Oxfordshire site. So last year, 2019, I arrived at the Rutherford Appleton Laboratory. And this is the role I'm in now. So yeah, I'm back as a control systems engineer, and I do quite similar things to what I did on placement. Whereas on placement, I was working on particle accelerators, I now work on laser systems. So as part of the central laser facility. So yeah, once again, I get to write sort of drivers for devices. We use something called EPICS, which stands for Experimental Physics and Industrial Control System. And yeah, just write drivers and write user interfaces as well. And similar to when I was on my placement year, I also get to take part in lots of outreach events. So on the right is yet again me volunteering as a robot design judge for the first LEGO League. But this time that image is from the national finals, which was at UE, which was really fun in Bristol. Yeah, and so these other pictures are just some of the laser labs, and got a picture of me working on site as well, which of course is just a fond, distant memory now, since I've been working from home since March, which is very unusual. But you know, obviously everybody's going through that at the moment, so just one of those things. And so for the future, I'm already a year through the graduate scheme, which feels quite crazy. I can't believe that time's gone so quickly. And so I've got one more year before I then become a permanent employee. And I'll be working on bigger projects in the future. So I'm already partly involved, but I'll be more involved in EPAC, which is the Extreme Photonics Application Centre. And this is basically a brand new gigantic laser facility that's going to allow us to do all sorts of new exciting experiments. And I'm really glad that I get to be part of working on that, because it's running from planning stage sort of now, and it's going to be completed in, I think, 2024. So it's a really massive project, and so I'm really excited to be a part of it. And that's the end. Sorry, that was a lot quicker than I expected, but I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to answer a few questions now. So like I said, and if anybody didn't hear at the start, at the bottom of your screens, there is a Q&A section. So please feel free to type any questions that you have now, and Rebecca will be happy to answer any of those. So one of the first questions we have, Rebecca, is how did you start programming in your own time, and what were your influences?
My influence was actually my dad. He's a software engineer, so he does a lot of programming, and so that's how I sort of first heard about it. But what I did at the time when I was at school was a course on an online resource called Coursera. So I did a program, a course in as an introduction to Python, and I also used a few other sort of random little fun things, like I think it's called Logo, which allows you to draw pictures with a turtle walking around the screen, which was quite fun, and also something called Processing, if I remember right. But I think it's just got easier and easier in terms of resources that are available since I was at school. So I would recommend anybody who's interested, just takes a quick Google and you can learn quite a lot without spending any money at all. So I think it's really good. Yeah.
Very good. So I've got another question that's just came in. Can you give a bit more detail on the published paper, Mind Denoting Sphere Bot Talks?
Yes. So the beginning of that work was for a module in soft robotics. So we were asked to explore using soft materials to produce a robot, because traditionally robotics you'd use sturdy components and sort of fixed parts. But yes, in this module we were asked to explore soft robotics. So some people made, for example, a soft robot snake, or you know, people made whatever they wanted basically, as long as it involved soft robotics. So we chose to, very bizarrely, which is basically a small wheeled robot inside of a gigantic soft sphere. And the concept, I will add untested, the concept is that this robot should be able to roll over a mine, causing it to detonate, and then the hope is that the robot can survive that impact and then carry on detonating mines. We did do some Sorry about that. Am I back?
Yes, you are back, Rebecca. Thank you.
Okay. I don't know what happened. Sorry. Yes, so we were able to test some aspects. So we tested the wheels through compression testing, and we dropped the robot from a height to see whether it sustained any damage and that sort of thing. So a lot of it was in like the wheel design. So we had sort of like these soft spokes, so that if there's an impact, they can all bend and then prevent that sort of shockwave from reaching the axle of the motors. So the plan is that hopefully, even if the 3D printed wheels or 3D printed sphere are damaged, then the expensive part, the electronics inside, is undamaged, and so you just replace the 3D printed bit and then set it off again.
Thank you. Just a quick one, just to let all the participants know, in case they were unsure, all participants are on mute, so don't worry if it isn't showing that you are. I've got another question here, Rebecca. For learning to program, what would you recommend? This person has not done programming since ASCII language.
I think that's quite a tricky one. I suppose it depends what you're hoping to learn from it, in terms of whether you want to get up to speed quickly, or whether you've got a particular application in mind. But for me personally, I find that Python was a good place to start for being able to build things quickly. And it's also, if you want it to be fun to learn, I find that it was really fun to program games. So I know that there are some online courses that guide you how to make your own video game. So that's something I'd recommend if you're looking to do it just for fun. But yeah, I think it just depends what you'd like to do with that knowledge, basically.
Thank you. So we've got another question here, Rebecca, hope you don't mind answering again. So this is from a lecturer, and he has asked all panelists. So Kelvin, we will have a question and answer session after each person's presentation, so the other panelists can answer your question then. But Rebecca can answer now. So how do you manage competition in your area of work?
As in terms of like job applications, do you think? I'm not sure what the question means.
I suppose so, and then maybe that depends how you take that really. Do you have an answer at all, or do you want me to go on to
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'll give it a go. I'd just say
yeah, just give it a go, however you interpret that.
Yeah, I would say generally, in terms of if it is about competition in job applications, that it's just a case of making sure you've researched the employer very well, make sure you know exactly what is required for the role, and check that you have the skills that you need. But also, as a side note, I suppose it's important to note that you don't need every single skill listed to apply. You never need to tick every single box. And also, I think it's a bit cheesy, and I'm sure everybody says this, but it's really important to just be yourself. I definitely think that a big part of getting the right job is showing that you're the right fit in that team. So if you just act like yourself, and that gets you hired, then that means it's right for them and it's right for you, basically.
Thank you again, Rebecca. I've got another good question here. Have you ever encountered any difficulties or prejudice in your career so far as a woman in a predominantly male field?
Yes and no. When I got to university, I was only one of 2 girls on my course, so I could see that it wasn't very common that girls were present in that sort of field. But at university, I didn't experience any particular problems due to being female, basically. And in terms of applying for jobs, I've never had problems. But one small sort of anecdotal story I can tell is one thing I encountered was that when I was first looking for my placement year, I managed to secure the place at Daresbury Laboratory. before any of my other colleagues on my course had found their placements. And somebody said, I'm sure it was meant as a joke or just a throwaway comment, but somebody said, oh, you probably only got that because you're a girl and they're trying to fill some quota or something. And they said it so casually, and I'm sure they didn't mean anything, they didn't mean to cause that much offence, but it's really stuck with me because, of course, that was about 5 years ago now, but I can still remember it very clearly. And I think it's important to remember that although lots of employers are trying really hard to increase their diversity, it's still important to just pick the right candidate. And I would like to think that most employers, or if not all employers, wouldn't choose somebody just for some token diversity thing. Like, you still need to evaluate candidates based on their merit. And so I would say that that comment was difficult to hear, but I have confidence that if an employer chooses to take you on, that's because they genuinely believe that you're the best person for the job.
Thank you. We've got a follow-up from the competition question before. So the question was to help students. So it's talking about working in an area, work area competition is one where women graduates find it difficult to cope and would make them leave work. How do I motivate my students to take competition? It can be men or women competitors.
Okay. That's a really tough one, actually. I'm not sure. In terms of motivation, I suppose it's just reassuring everybody that regardless of your personal traits, that you should give everything a good go. If you want to do something, all you can do is try your best, I suppose. So I'm sorry if that's a bit of a vague sort of cop-out answer, but that's the best I can come up with at the moment.
No, well answered. Thank you, Rebecca. So we've got lots of questions coming in. We'll have a couple more and then we'll move on to the next presentation, if that's okay. So let's have a look here. One second. Okay, so would we need to follow computing and programming courses at school if we were to pursue engineering in the future?
As far as I know, no, but I suppose I did start my education a while ago, so I don't know how things have changed, but I would say that in terms of if it's a university application, the most important thing is your personal statement. I can't speak for apprenticeships or other routes, but I know that at A-level I did maths, physics, chemistry and biology, so I had no experience of any engineering or computing subject. But I still got into my first choice university for robotics because I mentioned about the course I'd done in my own time about Python, and I just mentioned about my general enthusiasm, I suppose. I even mentioned Robot Wars. Like, it doesn't have to be very professional, as long as you can show that you have that passion for that subject. I think that's probably the most important thing.
Okay, thank you very much, Rebecca, and thank you for the wonderful presentation and for answering all of the questions. So we're now going to move on to our next presentation by Ellie Harkins. Ellie is a graduate project engineer at Siemens, so I'll leave it in your capable hands, Ellie.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay? And I will share my screen now. So let me know when you can see that. Yep, all good? Okay, lovely. Well, hi everyone, my name's Ellie. I am unfortunate to disappoint you. I'm not a project engineer, I'm a project manager at an engineering company. I don't know if that sort of changes any questions to start off with, but I hope not. I did a master's degree at Liverpool John Moores University in mechanical engineering. And I have just started my first year at Siemens Mobility. I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail in a second. But starting off to describe the picture, I was part of the LJMU e-racing team when I was at university. as one of my extracurricular activities, just in case you needed one, apart from doing a master's in mechanical engineering on top of it. But it was something that I really loved. I always thought I was going to go into an automotive industry, just because of the passion I got from doing Formula Student. If you've not heard about it, then don't worry, I'll have a little bit more information on the next slide about what Formula Student is. But I thought it was a really exciting topic to talk through. In terms of how I got into doing mechanical engineering, just like yourself, Rebecca, my dad's also an engineer, and it runs through your blood, and you're almost you're not forced into it at all, but you have that little bit of curiosity on what. And my dad restored classic motorcycles, and I got into restoring 1970s classic motorcycles myself before university. So it's always something that I have had an interest in. It's always been a hobby, and never something that I thought that it was weird for women to do. Not weird, not that it ever is, but not that we were a minority until I got into a lecture theatre of 180 people, and then seeing 6 girls there in a mechanical engineering degree. It was crazy to me that it was different. So yeah, I loved the degree. I really enjoyed it. And on this slide, it should have a bit more about Formula Student, why I did it, and about the car that we built in the end. So let me know if you can hear it. I don't know if the sound's gonna work. Give me a second. Let me reshare the screen with sound, and that should work.
So today we're here at sunny
Can you hear that?
Silverstone. Thank you very much. It's not that sunny right now, what's that?
Formula Student is a design competition where universities from across the world,
Design, build and race.
Single-seat, open-wheel race cars.
not just from Europe, there's people from America, Australia, Asia.
It's the closest you'll get to F1 without actually being an F1.
To get here, we've had to basically design a car from scratch.
And this year we are focused on building our very first electric vehicle,
Hence the letter E.
and that's what puts us beyond most of the other universities around us at the moment.
You know, you meet some of your best friends in the world, I think, working on Formula Student.
Everyone in this team is just so friendly.
George is pointing at himself.
You don't even feel there's a kind of boundary between first year, second year, third year.
We're like a little family.
We are like a big family,
The team went to China, to Shanghai.
completely funded by the university.
So hopefully we'll be designing one car between the 2 teams.
How about China?
We've got to meet some amazing people,
No, I wasn't there.
There's about 180 people in my year.
and only about 10 to 12 people on the team.
That instantly puts us a step ahead.
A lot of alumni have come back and said all they talk about to an employer is Formula Student.
What can you offer them that's extra?
I've gained communication skills.
Dealing with suppliers, talking to people.
Presentational skills and confidence.
What other skills have I gained?
Practical management skills.
Teamwork and presentation skills.
I mean, why would you not want them skills?
And that's what Formula Student's given me.
It puts you ahead of the rest.
All the effort shows.
It's quite rewarding, really. It's just an invaluable experience that you won't get anywhere else.
And here I am.
So that's a little bit of a background into my engineering degree, and really sort of to follow on from the competitive question almost on how I came into an interview with a competitive edge, and why I really enjoyed an automotive or an automotive path and a mechanical engineering as a degree, really. And then in September of 2019, I joined Siemens Mobility. If you don't know, Siemens Mobility is the section of Siemens that is rail, road and travel infrastructure. So I don't know if you've seen when traffic lights are being redone on a roundabout, or if you've got on a train from London Euston, or even the Eurostar, you will have got on a Siemens train. We do high-speed rail, intercity trains, locomotives, trams all over the world. And I'm proud to be based in Northampton at the moment. I am based at the headquarters in Northampton for Siemens Rail as a graduate project manager. I project manage, I think I project manage the Class 350 trains that run from London to Liverpool every day. A lot of new technology goes onto these trains, and we fit, and I manage a team of brilliant engineers, production managers, into refitting, remodifying these trains, and I'm very lucky to do so. It's obviously a huge project, and with greener travel and more environmentally friendly conscious, more environmentally conscious UK and world really, train travel and trams are growing in popularity. Maybe not because of COVID. I don't think public transport has succeeded as well. Not that we've stopped working hard, as I don't suspect any of the women on the panel have either. But yeah, it's been really exciting, and I've loved my first year and a bit of it. To go on from that, Siemens as a company has helped support in any sort of any women in engineering, what's the word? I can't even think of the word. Events that I've been able to go to. We attended the Green Park racing at Silverstone. I was also at the IET event in London, giving out the Diamond Jubilee scholarships to recipients, which was amazing to see. And if anyone's in A levels going into universities, I would 100% go for any sort of scholarship that you can with any big company, because I think it's brilliant. And even just to meet all of the recipients and lucky winners of it, I think it was great to do. And working for a big company allows you to do that, and gives you the space and the freedom to go and do this. So yeah, that was really good fun. New technology within Siemens. On the left, we have a project that I'm working really close with, Hydroflex. So hydrogen powered trains that we are developing in Germany. No travel over to Germany just yet. It's been put on pause, unfortunately, for a lot of the company. But a really exciting project. A lot of people think that train travel is fairly stagnant and old technology, but there is so much new technology going into these. It's so exciting, and stuff like hydrogen powered trains is the future. Hydrogen powered, battery powered. We're investigating it all, so that's really exciting. And then on the left is another big project that Siemens has just won, is the London Deep Tube trains. We are delivering a whole set of new London Underground driverless trains to in 2024, I think it is, in our complete new facility in Goole in the northwest in North Yorkshire. Yeah, really exciting British manufacturing, design, development. Yeah, it's lots of really exciting projects to be on, and in project management, yeah, I think I'm lucky enough to see all sides of it. As much as I loved engineering, I really do love having the visibility over all of the different functions within it. So it's something that I'm really enjoying. And I've never been able to talk for 20 minutes about myself in my whole life, but I hope that I'd filled up some time of it, and I'm very happy to answer any questions that you might have about me or my journey.
Thank you very much, Ellie. That was a great presentation and an insight to what you do. So we have a couple of questions lined up. So the first one, do you think without your dad's influence as a role model, you would have had a passion for engineering? i.e., did you have any other influences or role models? Thinking of other girls without the additional insight.
Completely. And it's a really good question. I think my dad gave me a great hobby, but I don't think that it was what really got me into engineering. It's more that it made me aware of what engineering is, more than anything. But what sort of got me into it was I really love maths and I really love physics. Is that bad to admit? Should I not be admitting that on in front of everyone? but I really enjoyed them, and it was being aware of the engineering was both of them things being put into one, really, and being applied into something. So as much as my dad's influence was great, and he gave me a passion, a great hobby to have, I think that the influence was how much I really loved maths and sciences, and I really loved applying them. So for me, I love the idea of making young women or young people in general aware of the opportunities that engineering brings, and that instead, if someone loves maths or really loves science and is managing to admit it, then hopefully then they can be told, well, have you, instead of being told, oh, go into accounting or research into that field, I sometimes it's nice to say, well, have you thought about engineering as a topic, or as a career to go into? Because I think there's so many opportunities with it. So I'm very lucky to have that. I really am. But I'd love to be able to make more young people aware of the opportunities that engineering brings.
Thank you, very well answered. So this one is more of a discussion, and I think it is important to ask. So someone has put here, it is extremely sad to hear that as the first female to graduate in electronics engineering, brackets, one girl in a class of 160 boys, that the number of girls studying engineering at UK universities are still so low. So I suppose a trigger for discussion is what can be done to help increase those numbers as an individual's responsibility. What can we do to actually help encourage more people to go and study it?
It is really sad. I don't think I know sort of one fellow female engineer that hasn't joined in a year and said, oh, it was great to see so many women there, or I had loads. I walked in and I saw sort of 50-50, which is what you'd expect and what you hope for, really, what we all sort of are striving for. It is very sad that we are the minority still by quite a long way. I guess events like today are brilliant ways to sort of make people more aware, and I think targeting A-level or even younger sort of GCSE A-level students and sort of making them more aware of the opportunities that it brings, like I said before, that if a student is really good at maths and sciences, that it isn't, why don't you do medicine and why don't you do accounting? It is that engineering is brought into that topic of conversation. That'd be something that I would almost wish that I'd been told, and sort of like, oh, have you thought about all these various different types of engineering almost? Yeah, I don't have the answer. I wish I did. I wish I could tell you that there's one easy answer to bringing women in, and I'd love to open the floor to Rebecca or Anne as well on how you think it could change, or whether you have a difference of opinion from me.
For me, when I talk to people about engineering, you just talk to them about every day and where engineering applies, because people don't realise that the chair you sat on right now will have been designed by an engineer. An engineer will have looked at the ergonomics of it. It will then have been produced by different engineers and manufacturing engineers. If you're intrigued on how things work, engineering is a place for you.
Very much so. And obviously I didn't go down the route of a design engineer. I'm not always very practical almost. I loved that side of engineering. I loved the practical side of it, but I went down a management route. So almost letting young people know that it's not one route. You're not going to be underneath a car by the time you finish your degree, and it's not that at all. There's loads more opportunities.
Can I just quickly add to that as well? Just in my personal experience, I find growing up, I don't know if this happens in general, but I find that there was quite a stigma for enjoying STEM subjects. It was very much seen as uncool, basically. I was pretty much just sort of bullied for it. So I don't know how exactly, but I think if we can try and help to take away the idea that STEM subjects are something to be almost something to be embarrassed about. I feel like a lot of people a lot of young children try and hide the fact that they're into the nerdy subjects. If we try and take away the fact that, oh, that's nerdy, that means you're not cool, then maybe more people would be able to enjoy it more. But again, I don't know how to do that, but just a thought.
No, completely agree. You don't. I remember telling people I'm feeling embarrassed and thinking, I wonder why I am. And it's sort of sometimes seen as not feminine, I guess, but it's just the curious. We love the curiosity of it, don't we? So yeah, not really an answer to the question, but more.
No, great discussion. So thank you very much. So I've got another one here. It's probably developing on the discussion that we've just had. So it's from a guy who's currently looking to recruit 2 junior/new graduate engineers into his electronics design team. It's currently a team of 26 who are all guys. He's worked in, he doesn't want to try and meet any quota, but in his previous company, when he's worked in a balanced team, it helps with ideas and innovation. How do you think he could make his tour and interview over more appealing? As it's hard getting a job, it's hard enough as getting a job, and it's hard getting good engineers.
Yeah, I bet it is. Oh, quite a difficult one. So I remember reading a statistic that sort of teams with closer to 50-50 male female actually work better. They're more productive, they have more ideas, the people are a lot more creative, and I think that discussions are had in a freer space, and I don't know, that there's definitely science behind why that is, and why having a female and male input in sort of half and half is as helpful. In terms of tailoring an interview to sort of to a woman, was that the question, sorry, or was it more? You're on mute, sorry.
Apologies, I was on mute then. Yeah, I suppose it's just without trying to meet a quota and doing it just for a number check. How do you make an interview and assessment process more appealing, just to be more diverse, I guess? I think blind recruitment's quite a good way.
Definitely. I hate the idea of positive discrimination almost. You can see why people would do it, but the idea that a woman is hired because they've got a percentage to reach is really heartbreaking to me. And I remember sort of, I can't remember what company it was, but they were giving an extra bonus if you were joining as a woman, and it was sort of like a lot of my male competitors were almost saying sort of, how's that fair? I don't understand that. And it was sort of like they don't see the prejudice that we get, but they see that positive discrimination in them scenarios. So it is quite a strange one, but I think blind recruitment's brilliant. I think even advertising it within sort of the IET for it might be just advertisement and getting it out there, and sharing job. I guess that there's probably quite a lot of people looking for jobs at the moment, and anything with graduates, I'm sure loads of people would be excited to go for at the moment. No idea how to tailor it to men and women. I think that if you put it on the appropriate forums to get any graduate engineers on, I hope that there'll be some women within that who are brilliant engineers and who will fill the job just as much as you want it to. Yeah, and I think someone's just said that advertisement of the wording of the advertisement itself and how you get that across to people, it is really important. It has to have the specific sort of what people are looking for, which can be when you're looking for a job and you're looking up a specific job, it flags up them specific wordings, so that's important as well.
Thank you. So I've got a few more questions here. What A levels or equivalent did you do?
I did maths, physics. I did, oh my goodness, what did I do? That feels like such a long time ago. I did an AS in PE. I really liked sport. I thought I was going to be a physiotherapist. And that was the dream. That was the dream for me until sort of a few months later, and I thought, well, you know what, so many people were doing physiotherapy, and yeah, and I don't know, I don't even know why I changed. It was one of them sort of, I did biology and PE, and I also did maths and physics. So I was almost lucky in the fact that I didn't plan, right, I will do maths and physics and I'll go into engineering. It was more that they were the A levels that I chose because I enjoyed them, and that happened to be the route that I took into engineering.
Thank you. Okay, here's a good one. Do you think targeting girls at GCSE and A levels is too late? Do you think that boys and girls are still being channeled into separate streams even earlier, maybe as early as primary school?
I do. Unfortunately, I think that the stereotypes become apparent very early on when you get sort of, these are the toys that you play with, these are the toys that you play with almost. You get the trucks and the toy cars, and girls get this, and I think that's when it starts. And I guess that's when we need to start changing how teachers or how parents, their perspective of that. That's when we need to start changing it. But going into a group of toddlers and telling them that engineering is the career that they should be going for, I don't think would be as useful. But yeah, there's definitely an unconscious bias. There is, and challenging that needs to be something that is well known, almost, that because people do it without even knowing it completely. And I think that targeting earlier, I think targeting primary school, early high school would be really useful in almost in activities to sort of I was talking to a younger family member the other day and telling them about 3D printing, and they were so curious about it, so excited that you could plan something and 30 minutes later it could be a small model of it. And I thought, gosh, you'd be a brilliant engineer because you're excited by it. But they said that a lot of people their age would be excited by that. It would be something that people would be really curious about. So maybe sort of really building upon that curiosity that you have when you're growing up on how things work, and saying, well, that is engineering, that is the basics of it. And if you enjoy something that's as simple as that, and as everyone enjoys Lego when they're little, and if you enjoy something as simple as that, then I think that the stereotypes do build as well in high school. You do sort of, you get sort of challenged, you get told that engineering is steel toe caps and oily overalls, and sort of you get put off it fairly quickly, I guess. So yeah, I do think almost all the way through your education, if you're told, if you're aware of engineering as a opportunity, as a career, I think that would be great. And as early as you can sort of ignite that curiosity and that sort of inner engineer, if you will, then the earlier you can, the better. But it all starts from a young age of that unconscious bias of what is male and what is a female thing to do.
Thank you very much. So I've got another question here. So I'm going to combine two of these questions because they could have the same answer. So firstly, what does your week look like as a project manager? And also, do you have any tips for managing engineering projects? Someone's asking who's in their first year of university, who has been offered the opportunity to be a team leader on the solar car challenge at uni, a bit like the Formula student, and they've never done anything like it. So any advice would be really useful.
First piece of advice: go for it. If you're considering doing it, then go for it and jump in it, and almost see if you like it in a strange way. But yeah, I was the deputy project manager for the racing team, and that's how I really sort of knew that I enjoyed managing a team. I enjoyed overseeing it from a top-down sort of view instead of really focusing on one bit and engineering that and perfecting it. I really enjoyed seeing a group of engineers and sort of making sure they work together. My week, what does my week look like at the moment? Probably a bit different day to day. You probably I go into a week with a plan of what I'm going to do, and Monday at 11 o'clock it's completely different. I work with a production team to make sure that the modification that we are being paid for is going smoothly, which it never is, but it's good fun when it doesn't go smoothly. I meet up with sort of on the ground shop floor production members, and then I also have meetings with a lot of senior people where it's sort of larger discussions on risks, and I prepare the slides and I talk through them, and I chair quite a lot of meetings to make sure that every function, whether it's quality, health and safety, procurement, materials, are all aligned in what our goal is and what we need to do. So really it's a lot of catching up with the different functions and making sure that that all of them are aligned really, and that we're trying to hit our targets of what we're supposed to have done by the end of the week, whether it's 1 unit a week or whether it's 1 unit in a month. It's all about just sort of making sure that everyone's on the same page really, and that we're keeping to budget, we're keeping to good quality, we're keeping to good health and safety. Yeah, that's what my week in a nutshell is. What was the other question? In terms of project managing a team or being a project engineer of a team at university, it can be really difficult. You can have people that are more likely to either go out or focus on that more than what you're wanting them to. The lucky thing about being in a job is that they all have to be there technically. But it can be really difficult, but it is really rewarding, and it's good to bring a team together, give everyone their set goals, making sure that you're sort of delegating, that you're taking everyone's opinions into account, and you're sort of making sure that if you have someone who's quiet in a team, that you listen to them and you make sure that their ideas are taken on board. I think that's really important, to get everyone's say into the group, and to from that make a really good make a decision that takes into account everyone's points of view and opinions, and design ideas and stuff like that. So I think that making sure that it's a collective team effort, and giving everyone their set goals to do, instead of letting everyone run out and try and all do every different thing at once. It's a really good opportunity to sort of lead that and make sure that at the end of it everyone comes together and you've got something really, really good at the end of it.
Thank you again. Okay, I'm going to finish up on just one more question so we can move on to Anne's presentation. This one is for all of the panelists. Do you have any favourite books that have helped you in your career? This person personally is a fan of Sheryl Sandberg's Lean In.
I'm reading Sheryl Sandberg's Lean In at the moment. I'm really enjoying it. I'm really enjoying her perspective of coming to the table. That's what it's all about, of having I can't even think of how to describe it well at the moment because I'm only halfway through it. So bear with me. I'm excited to read the rest of it. I've really come into the table as a woman in business and in engineering, and really shown what we can do. So yeah, I do recommend Sheryl Sandberg's Lean In as a book as well. I can't think of any others. Any others from Anne or Rebecca while I try and think?
I'm not really a book reader. I'm a person who likes to go and touch and feel things.
A Haynes manual then.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I can't remember the title of the book, but I read an interesting book recently about the difference between masculine and feminine brains. I'm sorry to say that the name's completely escaped me, but it was quite interesting. It was about how people have different like brain types and how that you can utilize those within a company or an organization to get the best out of everybody. And I thought that was quite interesting because it actually highlights how we all operate in different ways and how those differences can be used to your advantage. And so it's quite nice in terms of it sort of I guess almost sort of validates if you notice that you think differently to somebody else, that's not a problem. That's actually something that you should really be quite happy about. And we need different thinkers within a group to be able to get great things done. But yeah, sorry, I can't remember the title of the book.
No worries, thank you. So we're moving on to Anne's presentation now. So Anne is works at BAE Systems, and she is currently the head of program for Astute Boat 7, and she has over 20 years experience in aerospace and defence experience with air and submarines, and many other fantastic achievements over her career, which I will let Anne tell you about. So Anne, when you're ready, I will leave you to your presentation. Thank you.
So hopefully people can see my presentation. Yep. So unlike the others, I'm a little bit further into my career. 20 years now in BAE Systems. So I started in BAE Systems in the air domain, military air and information. I spent 15 years working on aircraft, and then I went from up above to down below, and now working submarines. I actually started with a mathematics degree, went in as a mathematical modeler, and then decided I enjoyed engineering, so I took an aircraft engineering degree. And that has led me up through engineering and into quality, project management and supply chain. I have along the way become a chartered fellow of the Institute of Engineering and Technology, and only last month I became a chartered project professional with the Association of Project Management. So I'm now a qualified project manager, and I've been involved with the IET for quite some time. I'm on the committee of Lancashire and Cumbria and previous chair of Lancashire and Cumbria. And actually, that's one of the things I would advise anybody is get involved outside work as well. You can learn lots from different people by doing so. So today I'll talk a little bit about BAE, the engineering challenges and some of the ones that I've had. And then actually the others have led into it quite well. Diversity, because it's more than just men and female. So BAE, we've got about 100,000 employees in total. Probably a third of us work in the UK, a third in the US, and then working across the world. So in my career, I've dealt with people in BAE Systems Saudi Arabia. I've travelled to both Saudi Arabia and America, working with BAE Systems America, and dealt with people in Canada, Sweden, and other countries. And that leads to some great experiences. But BAE Systems, the scale of our operations, so we start right with a real small, so 10 to the -9. That's the sort of level of material technology we're dealing with. And I was working on a project a number of years ago looking at stealth materials that will cause an aircraft to stop an aircraft being seen by radar. Then we move up into the guns and bullets. So, talking, 4 centimeters. Up into Typhoon and size of an aircraft. So you're talking of a 16-meter sort of region. Then into the region I'm in now with submarines. So the Astute class submarine, which I work on, is 97 meters long. Carrying on, BE Systems works in aircraft carriers. So the aircraft we were dealing with before now sit on the aircraft carrier. And to put that into scale, that's the Houses of Parliament. So the complexities that you're dealing with when you're dealing with materials of a minute, right up to integrated systems that arrive up in the air. So you've got to be very safety conscious. Down under the sea, which are in effect living quarters, hotels, as well as machines, to the aircraft carrier. But with that comes a challenge of rate of production. So if we look at the bullets, 25 every second. We look at the aircraft, 1 a week. F-35, which is the latest, is now 1 a day when it gets to full rate production. But then you look at the submarines that I'm now working on, we only produce 1 every 2.5 years. From the start of cutting steel to it actually going in the water and leaving the shipyard at Barrow is over 10 years. Best part of £1 billion for each one. So I'm now responsible for the 7th of the Astute class submarines. And if you think 10 years ago, plus the 10-15 years design before that, so 25 years ago, we didn't have an iPhone versus the technology that we're now trying to build into these things. So you're still having to change design as you're building the product. Think of the life cycle. So the Tornadoes started build before I was born. They're still flying and will still be flying in Germany till 2030 at the earliest. So first flight 74, deliveries started 79, 85 we started exporting, 98 production, midlife updates, completely new supports packages, and it's 2030 that will be, so you think that's over 50 years from start to when you're then looking at the end of these things and looking at disposing of them. So over to me, and a little bit more about me. So I started, as I said, with a mathematics degree as a fuel systems modelling engineer, looking at the pressures and flows around the system and how do you keep the centre of gravity of the fuel in the right place to get the most effectivity out of your aircraft. From that, moved into systems design, so gauging design, so how do you measure that? And then into software, so how do you write I never actually wrote any software, how do you write the logic so when you can give it to the software engineers so they can write the software? Back into modelling and then into stealth research. So looking at those technologies, but then looking at the outside of the aircraft as well as the inside of the aircraft. And that gave me quite a good basis of experience of different systems and different functions within engineering. From there, I took on a lead role of support research, then moved into AGE, which is aerospace ground equipment. So not the aircraft itself, but everything you need to look after the aircraft. From, as my husband laughs, wheel chocks and ping pong bats, all the way up to multi-million-pound pieces of avionics test equipment that make sure that all the black boxes are correct before you set off to fly. From there, I was challenged to take a move out of engineering. Engineering, I'd led reasonably large teams and led them from the front. I was challenged, I needed to learn how to influence people, but it didn't work for me. So I went and took on the role as head of quality, where I was responsible for the quality of the products across combat air support, but only had a team of about 10 people in doing that. So we had to influence all the engineers and influence everybody else to think about quality. From that, I moved up to submarines, a change in division, looking at something completely different as the head of a programme for Astute, taking the learning I'd had in setting up the age team onto a different product in a different part of the life cycle. I then took a short secondment into head of quality. Somebody was off ill and they said, they actually rang around the other quality directors, and one of my old line managers said, well, actually, you've got one of our previous heads of quality. So I did quality. Within there, did some improvements, which led me into the supply chain to help them with their improvements. And then back into Astute, now leading the 7th boat of Astute, which is the last of the Astute class submarines. And comes with it a whole load of challenges, because it's the last. There's bound to be something we run out of. So, engineering as a female, it has changed quite a lot over the last 20 years, I must say. When I became an executive, so we have professionals and executives, I was the first female engineering executive in what was then combat air support. Now we have an average of 8% across our executive population that are female engineers. One of the things I always found, and I found it just have something in common with people. So quite often there will be conversation about football, golf, sport in general. I just keep an eye on, you know, what are the scores, so I can talk a little bit about it, but then get people into talking more about themselves. One of the things I found really interesting in engineering is international cultures, and not just cultures, but different approaches, different ways of seeing things. And for me, the workplace is an evolving place. So one of the things that I always get asked, and I always ask people, is what does diversity mean for you? So can you spot the diversity here? Well, for me, it's not just about the obvious, and you've got the obvious, the appearance, the age, the colour of people, but it's also about everything else that drives a person. So what drives them behind the scene? Their work experience, their relationship, their community. What do they do outside work? What's a sector and business area? So actually, when I moved from the aircraft division to the submarines division, they're completely different. You're talking of millimetre thicknesses and materials to the depth of a Coke can, but actually the integration challenge is absolutely the same. Looking at customers, you know, who are you dealing with? Communication style is a really big one for me. So I'm somebody, engineer, I like the facts and figures for data, get to the point. But actually, I've got people who I work with who I call them a bit more fluffy. They have a different style, and actually, they're much better than me at articulating things, at doing presentation material. So actually, I work with them to get them to help me on that, and I can help them in getting to the point if they've got somebody that they're struggling with to get things over to. So again, I go back to it. It's not about just male, female, it's about what we can all bring to things. Actually, some of the times, and it was a question earlier, that you've had discrimination. One of the ones I had was when I moved to submarines, where you don't know about the product. It's not necessarily because I was a female, it was you haven't grown up on submarines, you haven't, you know, bashed metal. Actually, there's a lot more things I could bring because I had seen similar integration challenges and business changes in a different environment that were coming to submarines. So for me, it's more than just appearance. It's about different preferences, different behaviours, different backgrounds, bringing different views and working together. It's, as I say, it's far-reaching. It's about inclusion, embracing different thought processes and bringing people together to get the best out of everybody. So for me, our role as females and as people who want to bring people into engineering is about being inclusive. You know, get people to think about how things work, recognise different preferences and motivations. One that always has struck me is don't always delegate to the same person. Try and share things around the team so then everybody gets the opportunity. Some will say, no, that's not for them. But if you give different people different opportunities, there was a piece of research done that a male may put themselves forward for something when they understand 60% of it, a female much closer to 80%. So if we give people opportunities to see things, to actually experience them, then they're much more likely to put themselves forward because they have an understanding of it. And for me, diverse teams always outperform ones which are not diverse. So, any questions?
Well, firstly, thank you very much, Anne. That was a really great presentation and insight to what you do and what you've dealt with over the years. So, a few questions coming in here. So, firstly, considering attitudes towards gender equality in the Middle East, how was your experience working in Saudi Arabia or with Saudi clients?
Surprisingly enjoyable. So I went across as a single female. Yes, I had to wear the abaya once I was in the office, and that came with a level of respect from both male and females. But I found that they were talking 2014, very open to Western cultures and very welcoming and respectful of us.
Oh, that's nice. Thank you. Another question here. Due to remote learning and uncertainty of next year's A-level exams, some students are probably uncertain whether to go straight to university or take a gap year in industry to make their personal statement stronger. Since the aerospace industries have been affected by COVID, do you think it's a good idea for students to apply to jobs or volunteer, or is it going to be especially hard because of these current circumstances?
Oh, what a challenging question that one is. So there are many ways into engineering. If you look at companies like BAE Systems, we take on, even in the submarines division, we're taking on 250 apprentices this year. They're at GCSE level. We also take on higher apprentices at A levels, and we take on graduates at degree level. So there's multiple routes in. It's very much down to your personal view of, you know, what works for you. Many people come in and we then sponsor them to do degrees. So if you still want to study, we will do that day release and then sponsor degrees. One thing I would say to everybody is think about what makes you different. Think about what you can do, be that, you know, you have a hobby, playing with things, tinkering, you volunteer, something that makes you stand out on that application form as not just another engineer.
That's great, thank you, Anne. Next question. Did you seek out the leadership roles, or did it just happen, or did you just happen to end up in them as you were noticed by your managers? I'm trying to understand a female early to mid-career engineering professional, how actively I should seek out leadership roles.
So for me, I think it's a balance. Make it known that you have aspirations to go further, but not overtly. So, you know, ask about how do you progress. So some of those moves have been my choice. Some of those moves have been almost chosen for me. I decided that I wanted to apply into leadership, and my first leadership role was one I applied for. My next two were moves that were I was asked to move, and then submarines was a consideration as we were trying as a company to get more people with multi area experience, so not just always aircraft or always submarines or always ships. And I had a look at the bullet section, I had a look at the ship section, but submarines was one that, one, it was close to home, so I'm only an hour and a half away from where I grew up, and two, it was such an interesting challenge for both the business and for the product at that time, but it was one that I got hooked. I'll never forget, I came up here for a 2-year secondment. I now live up here, albeit in a flat because I'm building a house. I never thought I could be as passionate about a slow submarine that goes under the sea as you can be about Typhoon aircraft. But believe me, you get hooked.
Thank you. Next question. Have you dealt with male employees that disrespect, discriminate, and undermine you, and how do you handle them?
I've had a couple of minor challenges in my career. An interesting one where somebody said, when my husband got a promotion, well, you won't need to work anymore. And I just said, what makes you think I don't want to work? And put it back on them. They were quite surprised by that polite challenge back to them. And actually, it's about calling it out very politely, subtly. But if you do that and ask, well, what makes you think that way? Why would you, what's in your head? It makes them think about it a bit more. And actually, most of the time, it's not meant disrespectful. It's not meant harmful. They just haven't thought.
Thank you. Another question here. There has always been the problem of going into engineering the early days only to find that the way to a good salary is to move into management. Have you found this problem?
There is an element of, if you want to stay in the pure technical, your salary may be capped out, but that can still be a very generous salary in our company, mid-40s, 50,000. It is, I think it's not just an engineering thing, it's a corporate thing, that actually management and leadership is seen as the way to big salaries. There are areas that I've seen where actually this is changing, and actually the leaders are paid less than the technical people. And I'm pleased to see that people are respected for their technical ability and actually encouraged to stay in the technical where that is their skill set.
Thank you. Just had another question come in relating similar to that one. Do you think there is a gender pay gap in engineering?
Not that I've seen, or certainly not in our company, but that's probably because we are quite a large company and have quite a regimented approach to pay and salary.
Yep. Thank you. Just another one here that's come through about the previous question, where you questioned whether you would need to work anymore. Was that challenge from a male or female?
It was from a male.
Okay, thank you. So I've got a few more from before that I was unable to have time to answer. So what is or what would be the most useful support to have in your development as an engineer, for example, senior leaders in industry?
For me, it's somebody that you can pick the brains of. So when you do come up against challenges, and that's any challenge, it's just somebody you can bounce ideas off. That doesn't necessarily need to be somebody that senior, it's just find the right person that you can relate to and you can bounce ideas off. So for me, I keep in contact with a previous colleague that I worked with, and they're just a great sounding board.
Thank you. A question here. So this girl said she's the only girl in her A-level physics and A-level maths/further maths. And when I speak about my choices and ask why no one else in my year took them, I often get told that my subjects are too hard or that I'm not smart enough to do that. Do you think this is a common problem, or is this why not a lot of girls take it? If so, what do you think could be done about this?
I'll open that one up to the others. That's a challenge. Maths and sciences are seen as hard topics, but they're also very rewarding topics and lead to very rewarding careers.
Yeah, I suppose I would just like to comment on that. So I think if that's something you want to do and you feel good enough to do it, you would regret not pursuing that for someone telling you that you can't do it. So I would use those comments as a motivator to kind of prove that you can do it, and like use that as your drive to work harder and to show that you can, and pursue the career that you want. You should never let those negative comments stop you from studying those subjects at all. If anyone else has any comments on that on the board at all.
I think you've covered it there. I don't think anyone should be telling you that, well, that no one who's a third party, sort of, unless there's someone you know really well or anything like that, should ever tell you that you can't do a subject. Gosh, I think that's awful. But if you feel comfortable enough and you enjoy them most of all, then continue with them, and don't worry about being the only female in there, because use it as a selling point.
Right, I think that's it for questions. If anyone has any more, please type away in the question and answer box. Now I'll give that a couple more minutes. But in the meantime, I would just like to thank all of you for your wonderful presentations. I think we've had some great topics of discussions. It's obviously, like talking at the start, this is our first time doing it as a webinar. I think we've not had any major technical difficulties, which was my biggest concern, but it's great to see so many attendees and great questions about the presentation. And I hope that you've all taken something away from this event, whether that be to go and pursue a career in engineering or start looking at it, or using it as a motivator to help promote engineering to more women who are interested in STEM subjects. Just hope you've taken something good out of it that's going to benefit you and other people. So yeah, thank you ever so much to everybody for joining in. And if any of the attendees would like a continued professional development certificate for attending this event, you can email robert.mcdonald@ietvolunteer.org. I will pop that in the chat now for everybody to access, just so you can keep that as a record that you've attended this. So yeah, I'd just like to thank you all for attending. I think we've got a couple more questions coming in as I've said that. Someone's commented here, my takeaway from the Women in Engineering session today, what I take to my students is that these women love what they do and can see it as an exciting opportunity, motivated to achieve, confident in what they do, focused, keen, and inquired on their views, developed their skills in technical, soft, and management, and always did what they thought was right for them, which I think is a great comment. Thank you very much. That's the kind of feedback that we'd like, and I hope that's a word of encouragement for everybody else out there in engineering and doing the career that they love. So yeah, thank you very much. That's a nice way to end the event. Has anyone got any more comments or questions? We are still doing quite well for time. If anybody would like to comment, I'll give it a few more minutes. But if not, we will come to a close. But yeah, so like I said, I'll pop the email on the chat for everybody to see now where they can get their CPD certificates. Hang on a minute. Where are we? There we go. One sec. So okay. Yeah, so pop that on the chat for everybody. So if you just email that and we can get some CPD certificates sent out to anybody attending. Yeah, that's it for questions, I think. So I'll wrap up, and yeah, thank you again for all attending. I'm sure more events will happen in the future over webinar. I think it's been a first and new experience for us all, but I can imagine it's going to become more of the norm with current circumstances. But yeah, thank you all, and yeah, see you at the next webinar.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Good night,
Cheers.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.